the Evolution Security Podcast. Welcome, everyone, to the Evolution Security Podcast. This is Aaron Davis and Eric Davis, the Tactical Twins, and we are here with our good friend Cecil Burch, and we just have to hand out an award to Cecil. He has the world record repeat offender on the EvoSec podcast, number 5.
That's right.
Are you honored by that, Cecil?
I'm less. It's less about honored and more about in your face, Chris Lapre. That's the important part. Like the fact that we were tied. No, number one, the fact that he was ahead of me, that was so offensive. And then the fact that there was a period where we were just tied was gross. So now the natural order of the universe has reasserted itself, and that I'm back in the lead, as it should be. He should always be following behind me. Oh my God. Sometimes I goes too far. But then as soon as we get on the shooting range, he'll talk worse smack about me. So
yeah. You guys are great at talking smack. You guys clearly are brothers from another mother. And
we're so awful. We're so mean to each other. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Man, Chris is a great guy.
He is.
Part of the subject tonight, we've kind of talked pre-show is kind of a carbine deep dive that I got back into the last few weeks. And I text Chris, just asking him for, hey, any kind of, specifically, I was looking for law enforcement qualifications just because I'm interested in what some of the LE departments are doing. And he sent me a ton of stuff, just awesome, excellent source for drills and qualifications. Some of them I can share, some of them I can't. But man, what an awesome source. Chris did a great thing, and so just shout out to Chris. Sorry, buddy, but Cecil's in the lead now.
All right, and so it's going to stay this way. I will make sure of that. I will go down there and choke him out when he's on the show next, and I will always need at least one episode buffer between the two of us. But seriously, he's been a great shooting coach and mentor for me for 15 years now. And when I did a deep dive on carbines, this is probably when it was the cool thing to it was the super in thing to do, 2007, 2008.
That sounds
probably
about right.
2012, right? Where everything was, carbine. I did a lot of shooting. I mean, I've done a lot of shooting with Chris, but we were doing a lot of carbine work. I even took a couple classes he taught carbine wise. Terrific instructor across the board for shooting, but he may very well be one of the tops when it comes to teaching you how to run a carbine.
Ooh.
Because he does it. He understands it. This is not theory for him, right? And it's not in a military context. It's driving in the same environment and living in the same environment I live in.
Yeah.
That he functions in. So when he says this, and this, it's like, oh, that makes so much sense for me. So it's great.
And Cecil, to be honest with you, that has been kind of a shift in my thought process, because my thought process around carbine was built around when I was a soldier, carrying it for a living as a soldier.
Sure.
And I certainly thought about more of the medium distance. And of course, I mean, I had carbine classes, when I was a soldier outside of the Army. Of course, I was, into competitive shooting before I was a soldier. But anyway, my focus, and that's what was part of this deep dive in carbine, was I wanted to reflect more on the 50 and in. and because that interests me more as a civilian now, but not saying I'm ignoring the more intermediate distance shooting. I'm really interested in how can we help folks get better with the carbine at closer distance, because some people aren't going to have, even 50. If we can help people at 25 and learn how to be a better carbine shooter, that I'm kind of interested in that right now.
Well, I mean,
So
honestly, I think that's where for if you are not a professional gun bearer and you are living in the continental United States, what's your context for shooting? I'm sorry, you're not going to be taking 300-yard shots. That's
yep,
just, I mean, should you have the ability? Sure, that would be great to be a good shooter out to whatever distance. But in reality, the legal justification as a private citizen, the chance that you're going to take that, short of, zombie apocalypse type scenarios, which, come on.
Toilet
Yeah,
paper zombies.
yeah, exactly. Most of it's going to be within that 50 yards and in. That was a big shift for me a few years ago, where I'm following the trends, and I took off my red dot and my aim point, and I put on an LVPO. Well, I don't know, a year ago, I actually went back to a red dot. And a lot of it's that idea. Freddie Blish, who's uh, former Marine, used to run Robar. He's a gun sight range master. His whole thing is red dots for a carbine for a private citizen is the way to go.
yeah,
Most of your
cool.
shots are going to be at that under 50 yards and in type thing. And especially for, realistically, there was just a YouTube video, and I'm not going to name any names, but it's a big time guy who made his bones doing all the cool guy tactical gear, gun focused, everything's military focused. He just did a video where he's like, "Hey guys, the chance that I'm going to use my carbine outside my house is non-existent. It's just not going to happen. You use a firearm outside your house to protect yourself, it's going to be a handgun, unless you're hunting and you're jumped by bad guys or something. Maybe then. But short of that, you're going to have your handgun. And so, do you really need to set up your carbine? Do you really need a DMR
Yeah,
for personal
yeah.
defense? It's fun, and I'm not saying don't do it. The great thing, one of the great things about the United States is, hey, if you feel like you want that, go for it.
Yep.
Set yourself up with that kind of stuff. Oh, fine. But if we're going to talk about the reality of using something, the contextual reality of using something as a private citizen, it's going to be somebody's kicking down the door to my house, and I'm barricaded up with my AR or my long gun, and they're trying to come in. And if they make the mistake of coming in, boom, I'm going to burn them down. And so maybe that's a 12-yard, 13-yard shot,
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
if they turn and run away when they see me at the base of my stairs pointing the gun, and they turn around and run out, I'm not chasing them out into the street and shooting as they're driving away at 50, 75, 100 yards. That's just not going to happen. So, and I'm not to say that everybody should drop their LVPO. That's not what I'm saying. Everybody chooses what works best for them. I'm just saying my choice. That's why I went to going back to putting that old aim point on my AR.
Well, it's funny that we're talking about Chris Lapre as an instructor. Eric and I were just texting back and forth about having him come teach a class at Eric's joint in North Carolina.
Oh, yep,
that's good.
So, yeah, we're gonna get
do
that
it.
Going.
Do a day of pistol and a day of carbine.
Yeah, that's a good idea,
because he could teach. I mean, he's great at either one and both. And yeah, he's excellent, dude. He's an excellent instructor.
Yeah, we're going to make that happen, just like we're going to make happen bringing you out here for your close contact handgun class too,
Cool.
like you and I spoke on the phone.
Cool. Yeah, I love that.
Well, speaking of, one of the big reasons we invited you on is because we wanted to talk about some outstanding upcoming training opportunities. So as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen out in the audience, in September, we have the Combatives Summit where Cecil happens to be a instructor. Cecil, go ahead and give us a little synopsis of the Combatives Summit.
Yeah, that's a really cool event. A number of us have been talking about trying to do something that for a few years, but man, putting a conference together is not something you could just go, yeah, I'll do, I'll throw in a pot of coffee and people will show up. That's not how this stuff works. It's pretty daunting. You got to put a lot of time into it. And so sort of this idea just languished. And then John Valentine came along and goes, no, this needs to be done. He's got this vision, which I think it's super important. This idea of bringing together those of us who've been working in that field for a very long time, as well as connecting with the newer generation of guys who are putting the work in and coming up with their own unique ideas and maybe building on what we've done and taking it farther than we ever could have, and bringing that stuff together and having almost like a think tank, like a publicly visible think tank of meeting, me talking face to face with Matt Larson, the creator of the Army, the entire Army Combatives program,
Legend.
Legend, talking to guys like, I'm already buddies with Cliff Barley and Jerry Wetzel. I've known Jerry for 25 plus years at this point. Guys like that, but still more opportunity to talk and put our heads together. And then guys like I haven't met, like Aaron Giannetti.
Oh yeah.
And other guys like that. I know Ben from Redbird Combatives. I've been at his gym, teaching at his gym a couple years ago. So I've known Ben and talked to him for a long time. But all of us together and just kind of putting ideas together, as well as reaching students who, whether it's they've been following us and training with us in the past, or it's new people just coming in going, hey, I like shooting and I've been doing that, but I see the limitations and I see the gaps. If that's all I have is shooting, let's look at this other field. And so having this summit, and I really like that term as opposed to a conference or something, but the summit of all of us being able just to sit around and talk and obviously teach. We're all teaching a block of something specific. But when I'm not teaching, I'm going to be jumping in on other people's stuff. I want to see Aaron Giannetti teach. I want to see Cole Miller teach. I want to see, who else? I'm leaving out people's names who are teaching, and I feel really bad at the moment.
Yeah, and even John Valentine is going to be teaching a block as well.
Exactly.
Who has organized it.
Yep.
So,
he's the main driver behind this as the organizer. I mean, I would have loved to have done it 5 years ago, but I didn't have the energy and the will to put it together like the way John has worked to do it. And so I think it's going to be a really unique event. And I talked to John before he went and organized this, and he was asking me questions, and I said, it needs to be like the old I'm blanking on the name, the Columbia conference that Jeff Cooper put together in like the late 70s. That sort of kind of codified the modern technique of the pistol. And then that also laid the stage for the whole creation of EvoSec and USPSA, right? All came from this conference, and doing something. And pretty much you can trace most following all the firearms instructions since then to today as the starting point. Even the guys that have nothing to do with the modern technique or have nothing to do with gun sight, that's still sort of the touchstone for that modern drive. And it would be awesome if this acts as the same for that combatives and integrated training paradigm, to be like, okay, here's what we've done in the past. Here's our best practices and best thoughts here. But when we push them together, and what do you think about this? And then for going forth, then more people, maybe these students are going to be the next generation who take it even further. and it gets more publicity and more eyes get on it. Just like the Columbia conference went from, a handful of guys doing practical shooting to then, I mean, there's whole after that, there were whole magazines. Combat Handguns magazine did not exist before the Columbia conference.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's a direct link. I'm not saying that, but it didn't exist before, but it could exist after, and that would be awesome. I would love the idea of like, a monthly magazine on, integrated fighting methods, right? That would be awesome.
Badass. Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
And Cecil, I think in this modern era, and with an event like this, I think it's very possible. And frankly, and again, maybe it's anecdotal. I've mentioned this on the air before. Maybe it's anecdotal, but at a minimum, in the firearms community, there is a lot more. And I credit you guys, Craig, the ShivWorks Collective. I credit all of you guys doing this hard work with basically changing the lexicon, and I think that's a great sign. I think it's very possible at this point.
I every now and then, Larry and I or somebody will talk about it, and we'll talk about, hey, remember the days on TPI in 2006 when we were this tiny group, and if we ever tried to say something on any other discussion forum, it was, we were treated like, Nazis. Like, oh, God, that's stupid. That's stupid. We're never going to do that. I carry a gun so I don't have to wrestle people, and blah, 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 and all that kind of stupid stuff. That still, unfortunately, every now and then raises its stupid little insipid head every now and then now. But I think the majority of people over this time have seen we're right. Right? I mean, you might have this guy out there, we never see entangled weapons fight. Oh, so those 50 that I've posted over the last year on my blog, that all has just happened recently, those don't exist. That's a mirage. Okay. And I think people see that. So every time that, back then, 2006, 2007, it was real easy for some person, I won't be pejorative, but for some person who'd say, oh, well, we never see that. You're never going to use jiu-jitsu in a fight. You never use wrestling in a fight. Okay, you could try to talk about it, but it was harder to get the information across. Well, now you just have to have any social media. And at some point on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, somewhere, you're going to see a video of two guys rolling around, two guys in a clinch, gun, knife involved. You're going to see that, and every person out there has seen it at least a handful of times, even if you're not looking for it. And so now, the people who still insist on that stuff, they're actually they're killing their own credibility. They're desperately trying to convince people that this isn't a thing. In reality, the average person goes, yeah, it is a thing. And here's the thing. None of us, Craig, myself, we never say that every fight's an entangled fight. I've never said that. I've never said that every fight goes to the ground. That's not what I'm saying. A lot of them do. Right? And a lot more would if good guys knew how to do it, or bad guys pursued the fight more. Because half the time, it doesn't become entangled only because when you start to fight back, the bad guy is not interested in a gladiatorial contest. He's just going to go, well, I'm out of here. And he goes, he's not going to get, otherwise we'd see a hell of a lot more actual entangled fights. But of course, the critics don't want to think of that stuff. They just they don't want to do the work, is really what it comes down to. They're either afraid to do the work, or they're teaching straight shooting, and they don't want to take the chance that they're not, the ultimate arbiter of everything that's fighting. And so they'll try to insist that this doesn't work. So at this point, now we're, the guys and I were 17, 18, 19, almost 20 years in from publicly hitting on this. And you know what? It feels like victory. You know what I mean? It almost feels like,
absolutely.
man, very, very few people. Like something will come up on Facebook, or maybe I'll post an article about, hey, here's a video that just happened. Look what this is. And you have one guy chime in. Oh, that's stupid. He shouldn't have gone to the ground. I don't even have to answer anymore, right? I'll have 18 people jumping in comments going, listen, dip, here's X, Y, and Z documented empirical data why you're an idiot. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's the win.
All right, let's take a quick moment to mention a couple of amazing American companies that we are proud to have as sponsors of our show. The first one is Origin. Origin USA is an American entrepreneurial success story. From offering the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gis, period, to their vast line of Jocko fuel supplements, everything is the highest quality, American quality. Now check out their new line of RTX clothing that stands for Roll, Train, and Execute. They have shorts, shirts, and hoodies, all to keep you comfortable from the mats all the way to the trail. Now go to originusa.com and you can get 10% off on your first order. Now we'd like to mention Tenacor. They offer the most innovative purpose-built carry solutions on the market. My perfect carry setup is with my Boresight Solutions Glock 19 in my Velo 4 holster, held comfortably in place with my zero belt. Nothing is as comfortable and nothing conceals as well as that setup. Now, for those of you that love your weapon-mounted lights, most of Tenacor's models come in WML variants, like the Sagex Lux 2, which has some of the same brilliant design attributes as the Velo 4. Go to Tenacor.com and get your everyday carry gear covered.
So it feels like now is almost the perfect time for this summit, to where, like you said, Eric, where we could take it from where it's been with, influencing some, but now it gets spread out the same way it became. You had people who never listened to Cooper, or didn't know who Chuck Taylor was, or who Masada Ayub was in 1980. But then after that, all of a sudden they find themselves, oh, hey, there's this things called IPSC where they're shooting guns. I'm going to go give that a try. And I kind of feel like we might be in that same area. So I'm super excited about the summit. I think it's going to be terrific.
Well, number one, Cecil, I'm pumped about it. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And two things I also was going to mention is the guys that are still preaching against it are the ones that don't want to do the work to learn it themselves. They're not, and they don't have the skills. They like to still remain in their bubble of believing that their talisman's is gonna save the day in every instance.
Yep.
And one of the other things that when you were talking, it reminded me of Craig has always talked about is that, yeah, maybe the entangled fight isn't what's always going to happen, but it's the worst case scenario and you better know how to handle it. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. Because the problem with only being prepared for best case scenario is when it's worst case, you might crumble mentally and emotionally and not be able to do anything anyway. But if you know in your heart of hearts the worst case scenario is you're solid on, I've got this. Everything else is that much easier, right? It's seatbelt and airbags. You drive around, you have seatbelts and airbags. You, God forbid, you ever have to use them. But if you do, they better be there. You don't decide, hey, this almost never happens. I'm not, I've been driving for years, and, I only drive from here to the store. I'm not going to put on my seatbelt, and I'm going to drive a car with no airbags. Nobody does. Well, anybody with half a brain's not going to do that. Right? We want to be prepared for this kind of stuff. And then the other part that really drives me crazy is because the conversation, the argument always goes one way, is everyone's talking about the worst case scenario, the entangled fight with weapons already deployed. That's horrible. But and we should be ready for that. But the thing that it's lost on all the critics, especially the gun-centric guys, where the gun is the problem. All you need to defend yourself. Look how many videos we see of, guys, with no training and out of shape, defend themselves. Sure, that happens. But you know what's more common is the gun's not justified. The majority, literally over 60% of violent crime does not rise to the level of lethal force. That's not my opinion. You look at the UCR, you look at the actual crime reports. Most violent crime where there's some threat of physical injury does not rise to lethal force. So you're going to walk around, okay, I got my gun, I'm ready for that. And this bad guy attacks you, but it's not lethal force, but you use it anyway. Or, well, you got two choices: get the gun out to defend yourself, and now you go to jail because it wasn't justified, or you don't use your gun and you get slapped around because you don't have any other option. You have nothing besides the gun. And here's the thing: grappling is the best way to stop another human being from hurting you. Sorry, that's not questionable anymore. We've been doing this for too long. Can a smaller person use strikes to hurt a bigger person? Sure, absolutely. But it requires an inordinate amount of training time, an inordinate amount of time of maintenance. And even then, there's still going to be a level where that smaller, that 130-pound person is not going to be able to attack and hurt that guy who's substantially bigger than them.
Yep.
But you know what you can do? This smaller person, they can control that bigger guy. They can tangle up, tie up, get an underhook, head position, elbow tie, get behind a person, waist lock on the back. You can do that. And that's not, and again, not my opinion. Go to any jiu-jitsu gym, anywhere in the world, any day of the week, and you will see that exact same happening under full-on rolling pressured level. You'll see the smaller person be able to deal with that. There's a reason why in jiu-jitsu there is the open weight class as sort of the ultimate, like if you are the open weight black belt champion at the Mundials, you are the man, right? When's the last time you saw an open weight class in a striking environment? Doesn't exist because that stupid, lazy, out of shape, 280-pound fat dude is going to destroy that super in shape, 130-pound super athlete. One or two punches is going to hurt that guy. And the 130-pound guy is going to be do. He's going to hit him 30 times, and the big guy is going to be like nothing, and that's just a fact. So you're going to ignore grappling because it never happens. Okay. Again, we have so many videos now. We have literally thousands of videos over the last 30 years where grappling worked beautifully in the street. Now you can go, but if those other guys jumped in and this, it's not, but it didn't happen. We see the video of what actually happened, that this jiu-jitsu guy took this guy's back, choked him out, and the fight was over. Or, this big guy attacked the smaller guy, and the smaller guy wrapped him up in guard and then got to a triangle and choked him out or popped his arm. We see that over and over and over again. And so you want to ignore that as part of, you don't want to do it, or you're going to try to pretend this stuff never happens. Okay, cool. You're just an idiot. I'm sorry. That's just the fact. The totality of self-preservation is we need to be prepared for all this stuff. I don't want some dude just around to slap me around in front of my family and take my phone and take my wallet and all this stuff, but not rise to the level of lethal force. And then I can't defend myself. Or God forbid, I travel somewhere. I travel to London, or I travel to Japan. I can't carry a gun. I can't even carry a knife there. I can't even carry a tiny little 3-inch folding knife in any of those places. But you know what? I can fight and defend myself. You can never, ever disarm me, ever. You can take my tools away, but I'm not disarmed, right? And you want to ignore that part? That's fine, right? But I think most people, the majority of people in the training community who look at it with an open mind, realize there's more to this than the gun.
Yeah. Hey, Cecil, real quick, buddy, move your microphone back over. You kind of knocked it out of the way, and we lost a
There?
little bit of your let's see here.
That's better?
Yeah, that's much better. Okay, cool.
We were
That's
still
weird.
getting it though.
Okay.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, that's
No.
fine.
Okay.
So with that excellent explanation of all that, Cecil, and just a reminder again, we're talking about the Combatives Summit.
Oh, yeah. I went off on the tangent. We're talking about the summit, and then I went off on my rant. I apologize.
It's a perfect explanation, no problem. But for the audience out there, it's going to be September 22nd through the 24th in Auburndale, Florida.
Yep.
Folks, there's still slots available. And I just spoke with John Valentine prior to coming on the show, and he's saying that normal price right now is $11.99, but he said if you email them at info@combativesummit.com, that's combativessummit.com. If you email him, he'll give everybody the early bird special, which will take 25% off.
Wow.
So rock on.
So folks, get out there and sign up for it. You can come train with Cecil. I'll be there. Unfortunately, Aaron can't make this one, but there's going to be a lot of awesome people out there.
That's great.
And it's gonna be the Combatives Summit is going to be similar to the TACCOM when it comes to the firearms base. So
yeah,
I'm really.
I'll make it next year for sure.
Well, also, again, Cecil, this is talking about upcoming awesome opportunities.
Yeah.
You guys have a couple of the NPE Counter Robbery classes coming up.
Yep.
Let's talk about that. And I guess I can say you guys have one in September, the 1st through the 3rd, and that's at Escondido, California.
Yep, just slightly northeast of San Diego. Not that far. Like I think half hour ish, 40 minutes from San Diego Airport.
Oh, really cool.
Yeah,
I love San Diego.
Yeah. I love
like
San
politics,
Diego.
but I love San Diego.
Yeah, I love San Diego.
And then you guys also have one October 13th through the 15th in Road, Grandview, Texas, correct?
Yeah, a little bit outside Fort Worth.
Well,
and that's in October.
Yeah, that's I'm eyeballing that, Aaron.
I'm starting to eyeball it too, man.
I love that class. It's one of those ones that in the back of my head I've always thought about, but it was like, how do I do this? How do I get this information across? How do I teach this? And that's and some of what I do in my close contact handgun class is sort of a lot of what like some of the stuff we do in the NPE Counter Robbery. But with this, the NPE Counter Robbery, it's a very specific thing. It's not just whenever, like close contact handgun is just sort of the general umbrella way of managing unknown contacts and compressed shooting and shooting for retention. Whereas NPE is like, listen, you're average everyday earth person. You probably have some kind of limitation of some sort, whether it's a legal NPE, whether it's a social NPE, whether it's a business NPE that says you can't carry or you're limited, or maybe there's no, this is another one that people don't think about. Maybe there's not a specific, say you can't carry a weapon, but you have to dress like this. And that required dress, that required clothing makes it much, much harder to carry a gun, to conceal a gun. So it's those issues. And then, but just because you're in that environment, I would even argue that you're more likely to be robbed, right, than if you were in another environment, right? So it's that
looking all dapper.
Yeah, you're looking dapper and you're like, oh, and this guy's an easy mark. Well, you should be able to defend yourself. You should be able to see and understand and know all this stuff. And then so what we do with NPE Counter Robbery, it's very much we're We're putting everything together. And this is what I'm so happy about the course with. Yeah, there's muck. We're doing muck. My portion is muck. But so we split the students into 2 groups. And so Chuck and Daryl will take one and they'll do live fire and some OC stuff. I'll take the other group and we'll start working. I'll give them the basics of muck. And then as we interact, we keep switching, like about every hour-ish. We keep switching. Well, as they go through the stuff with Chuck and Daryl, I start bringing that in. Oh, OC spray. Okay, cool. Well, now you can use OC and muck, but how? Right? How do you carry it? How are you going to deploy it? How are you going to access it? You know, have you thought about that? Have you thought about these kind of things? And then we let them do it. And then, man, I can't tell you how many people afterwards go, wow, I never tested my OC spray as far as actually getting it out when I'm under stress. I always just assumed, oh, I could just grab it out of my purse or I could grab it out of my pocket or whatever. Well, now you get to actually do it against a role player who gets to act like a bad guy would act. And then we should go back and forth and we add in, all right, now you've got some shooting issues. You've been shooting and doing the live fire and seeing how difficult it is to work around people. Well, now let's plug that in. And so now you're interacting with the others, with the bad guy, and maybe you get your gun out, but now all the other groups, all the other pairs doing the same thing, they're actually innocent bystanders. So you start getting that gun out and it's like, oh, wait, I've just covered,
Nice.
I've muzzle covered these 4 or 5 people, and I've just committed aggravated assault on all those people. And so
that is an awesome integration right there.
Yeah, and you're getting it all the time. You're getting this all the time, constantly, this integration in a way that truly, I don't know of any other. The only other one that comes close to this is Craig's experiential learning lab that he does at TACCon, and he only does that at TACCon.
Yeah,
that's sort of like a special thing for TACCon. But to this level where you have to operate on all these components, and you're getting it constantly. You cycle to the range, you cycle to me, you cycle the range. So for Friday night, couple hours Friday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, you're getting this. So the final shooting, the live fire stuff is really complex. Chuck actually acts as sort of a role player. I'm not going to give you any more than that because it's a nice surprise for everybody, but you have to do stuff with that. And Daryl sets up a really complex problem. But everybody goes, wait a minute, this is a really sucky problem. It's very complex, it's very difficult, but it's very real. None of it feels like some weird artificial Kobayashi Maru type thing where it's just a gotcha. It's literally, look at this. And everyone goes, oh man, this is how my grocery store is set up. This is how the Starbucks I go to every morning on the way to work is set up. And I have these same issues. And nobody ever thinks of it. Because on the range, what's the worry on the range? Right? Shooter ready, stand by. You already know the drill. Boom, 2-2, 2-2, reload, boom, boom, boom. Which is great. And you need to work that. I'm not dissing that or making fun of that. I'm just saying that's only one slice and it has little bearing on interacting with real world people. So with NPE, we're hitting that. And the other thing that I think is important in this class is that we're focusing on the kind of guns that you would be using in that environment. You know, for every time some person, again, I'm going to try not to be pejorative in my language. Every time somebody says, oh, I can carry a Glock 34 with an X300 and a red dot and extended mag. I can carry that anywhere and conceal it. You're a liar. You can't. You can't do those stupid pictures where you get your shirt a certain way and you stand up and think, oh, see, I'm concealed. Yeah, move around.
Yeah,
Get
exactly.
Get a little sweat on your t-shirt and get those creases where now it starts to stick to certain aspects of your body or your belt or whatever, or that seat or something else. And now, oh, wait a minute. Wait, there's a lump there that you didn't see when you're just standing there in the mirror going, yeah, I'm concealed, right? So realistically, the way most people have to dress when they're at work in that kind of environment, you don't get to dress around the gun. Man, I hate that phrase so much, because my entire the minute I was out of college, when I was working Monday through Friday, 8 to 5:30, I never could dress around the gun. For 35 years, I can't dress around the gun. Maybe on the weekend, but that's it. And these people just, all these gun and experts throw that out. Dress around the gun, dress around the gun. That's BS. Most people cannot dress around the gun. My daughter has been a nurse practitioner working at a major hospital. There is a dress code. She has to wear scrubs. You can't go packing with heavy duty gear and scrubs, especially when you're picking patients up, when you're moving stuff around. You don't get to do whatever you want. And every time this ex-mill guy or this ex-LE guy is now operating, teaching civilians, private citizens, and it's like, oh, you can, there's a well-known instructor who actually said these words on a podcast. If you can't conceal a Glock 17 every single day, you're lazy, you're stupid.
Oh my gosh.
Now, it just so happens this guy's like 6'4" and 220 pounds, and he's worked full-time in some capacity in the firearms industry since he got out of the military. So for him, he's 100% correct. But tell that to the 120 pound. How big is Becky? She's not super big.
Yeah, she's
5'4".
I think she's 5'5". Becky, come here.
Oh, that's cool. We got to see her forever.
Becky.
I don't think she's home.
Oh, well, there's my son though.
Oh, okay.
How tall is Mom, buddy?
Like 5'6", 5'5".
Yeah.
5'5", 100 and we shouldn't say. She'll probably be mad at me.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's just say she's fit. So
she's fit, but she's not huge.
No.
She's fit.
Yeah, she's lean.
She's lean.
Yep.
So you're going to tell her, if you can't carry a Glock 17, you're lazy or stupid. Come on, guys. That's just dumb. Most people in that environment have to you have to make compromises somehow. You go to a snub revolver, you go to a G43, you go to a shield, you go whatever. But how many classes are out there that allow you to shoot that gun from the concealment that you normally do on a regular basis and actually check it for score, for time, for accuracy? You almost never have that happen, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to shoot my shield, but now I'm going to carry it in my appendix rig, when in reality, most of the time I'm carrying it in a smart carry, or it's in a pocket, or it's on my ankle. Well, you know what? You run an ankle gun at an NPE Counter Robbery, you can run it that way and shoot it live. We have to make a few adjustments on the shooting line, but we'll do that. We had at Revolver Roundup last year, I was jumping in on Daryl Bulkey's and Dave Dolan's class, and they had a woman who carried her gun in a purse and asked, "Can I run it in a purse?" And Daryl and Dave were like, "Sure." And they put her at one end of the shooting line, and Dave kind of hovered over there just to make sure, and kind of ran her through slowly, and she was super safe. Boom. And she got actual practice shooting live under time from the way she carried most of her life.
Cool.
Now, don't tell me that that's not a more useful class than another, team room clearing thing where I'm under nods and I got plates on. Yeah, if you're a cop, if you're military, that's a great class. If you're a private citizen and you're doing that, okay. Is it fun? Sure.
Entertainment, right?
It's entertainment. And is there some tiny sliver sometime where you might use some of that? Absolutely. But on the scale of most useful, that's way down here. And running your 642 out of your pocket that you do in your business suit, it's way up here. And so with NPE, we try to do that. It's like you're practicing for the real world. So let's practice like you're in the real world, but have it with consequences. You screw up during the force on force stuff, you're going to realize it. You screw up, you make a bad shooting decision and you shoot an innocent, or you don't shoot the bad guy because you were too nervous, or you muzzle covered 4 innocents. Great. Well, now you know. Let's get that penalty in class, in training, so then we make sure we never do it out there. So, I'm really proud of that class. I really think it's a great class.
Well,
So
go ahead, Aaron.
real quick though, you guys forgive me, I don't remember if we said it, but the key, right, for those that may not be tracking that acronym, NPE is non-permissive environment.
Yes.
So, which I'm sure people they know what you're talking about because of the concepts you're talking about, the deeper concealment,
Sure.
etc. But a lot of us do just rattle off NPE and
Yep.
some. I'd like people to be able to really put those 2 and 2 together.
100%.
And also, I'd like to add too, we may have covered, but just in case. So, of course, Cecil Burch, our esteemed guest, and then, of course, Daryl Bolke and Chuck Haggard are the 2 other instructors.
Yep. It's
and
3
a
of
lot
us
of
in
people,
each class.
Yep. So, I mean, folks, a lot of our, I'd say a good percentage of our audience know exactly who those gentlemen are. But if you don't, you guys should. And you get all 3 of these awesome instructors in that course.
And I'll say another thing about that, teaching it with those 2 guys. The 3 of us don't agree on everything. It's just like me and Craig and Chris and Paul and Larry. We don't agree on everything. Now, we might agree on 98%-ish, whatever. But anytime you see, me or Larry or Chris teach together, there's going to be like that, hey, well, I think this and I think this. And it's the same in NPE. Daryl might like this a little bit and I don't, or I like this and he doesn't. But we're going to tell you why. Why do I say this, but I'm not as big a fan of that, and Daryl is? We'll tell you why. And then you get to draw your own conclusions. It's not this across the board, hey, this is the way it is. You get to see that there's nuance in the real world. Like, oh, wait a minute, I understand what Cecil's saying, but I kind of agree with what Daryl says about this. Cool, that's great. But I'm always going to, all of us, we're always going to give you the reasoning, the whys behind why I believe and teach what I teach and do for myself. And you can judge it based on that. I'm never just going to say, well, do it my way because I said, or this is how I was taught, or this is what works. That's not what I'll never say that. And Daryl won't do that. Chuck won't do that. Larry never says it. Chris, Paul, Craig never says that. Right? This is our best practices as best as we know it right now, but we're always open to debate. And hey, you bring something legitimate, great, let's talk about it. And so I just want to bring that up because, I don't want everybody to think that it's like an echo chamber when we're teaching. Because there's little things, and we'll each poke at the other one. Oh yeah, Daryl's going to talk about this, kind of thing. But again, the differences are those small little things. But you're going to get that hammered out in front. One of the things we do in NPE is on Sunday. Yeah, we moved it to Sunday. So for lunch on Sunday, we do a working lunch where we all sit around and Daryl, Chuck, and I show our NPE gear. Here's what I do sometimes with this, and here's a sample of this, and here's Chuck bringing up how I did this, and Daryl's like, oh, I use this here, and again, you get to see there's probably about 80% crossover between what we do and when we do that show and tell, but there's that 20% that it's a little bit different, and I think that's cool for people to see. There's not one path on this, right? I like this, but Daryl might like this, and Chuck prefers this a little bit, but it's still all working the same way.
Man, it sounds like an awesome class, and Aaron and I are definitely eyeballing the October. class.
Oh, good. That'd
Do
be
our
great.
best to get into it.
I think you guys would super dig it. I think it's right
Oh,
up
I
your
guarantee
alley
it.
with how you guys think. Yeah, I think you'll be like, oh yeah, because you
I'm
love to be
positive.
challenged. You guys love to be able to test yourself with the possibility of failure. And I
Yep.
think you guys are going to respond to that like, oh my God, this is great.
Oh,
Mhm.
I'm sure we will fail too. And if it,
Oh,
I mean,
everybody will at some
yeah,
point.
if you're not failing in training, it's not valuable training.
Yeah.
In my
It's not
opinion.
pushing you hard enough.
Yep, exactly.
Well, and as I'm hearing this, to me, it's got to be one of the coolest sounding classes I can think of right now. So, I mean, seriously,
And you know
I
what?
don't just have. Mhm.
No, I'm sorry, Aaron. I didn't about it. But
Oh,
the
I was just
jujitsu.
saying that I won't say anything like that, unless I freaking mean it, because that's lame to not
Well,
be
you know
honest
what's
with
funny,
people.
but along those lines, it's like it's really interesting to me because for so long, anybody who wanted to do anything different as a class, it was a lot of you know pushing poop uphill, right? It was very difficult, not a lot of buy-in. And now, but now, like Craig's stuff is completely accepted. Right now, it's an in thing to go train with Craig. Um, so many people are doing straight jujitsu, right?
Hmm.
And then you've got stuff like the stuff that Lee Weems, John Hearn, and Eric Galhouse do, the cognitive conclave type stuff, where they're getting into that same level of mental pressure and doing stuff, but it's a little different, right? It's not ECQC, it's not NPE Counter Robbery, it's not what I do in IAC, but all these things kind of go together because they're all testing essentially the same thing, thinking while having to defend yourself against a sudden surprise attack. Whether we do it with a gun, we do it with a knife, whether we do it with empty hands, whether we do it with everything, all of it's that same thing. And you never had that 5, 10. I mean, outside of ECQC or outside what I taught or Paul or Craig, there was never really any of that. And now we've got this stuff where like you could go to NPE Counter Robbery and then you do Cognitive Conclave and then you do ECQC and you'll go, yeah, it's all different, but it's making me more able to remain calm in this horrible storm of fighting for my life. And I think that's really where we should be focusing on the training
Yeah.
is the little things, handgun, knife, carbine, shotgun, jujitsu, strike, whatever that is. Yeah, we want to teach that too, but that's almost the vehicle to teach you how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and having to function under pressure. We just have different avenues to address that and test it out. And I don't think there's ever been a time in history really to this level that it's so accessible to anybody
Yeah.
at
I
this
mean,
point.
I can't agree with that more because, I've seen it as a consumer and as a mentee
Yep.
of you guys. And so, yeah, it's an awesome opportunity. And like a lot of us have talked about, and again, additional mentors of ours, is that we are in the best of times as it relates to
Yep.
training. But then there's that flip side that yes, there is that entertainment feeding,
Sure.
and for people to make the smart decision.
Sure.
What you got, Aaron?
Well, so as you guys were talking earlier about the change in, I mean, it was a lot earlier, Cecil. You were talking about the change in people's attitudes,
Mm.
and now that this type of training is so much more acceptable, it really is pretty amazing if someone does come in and say some smart ass remark about it. Like you said, people that really know what's going on, and even if they haven't done this type of training or they haven't done it much, there's so many people that accept it as extremely important, if
Mm.
not the most important thing they should do.
Yep.
Because you know all of us, I was actually coaching a friend today on some pistol platform stuff, and I said, my shooting is significantly better, just frankly, than I'll probably ever need. I said, but I'm training with a pistol to handle outliers.
Yep.
Okay. This is the exact same concept. And there's so many people now in this country, again, like Eric said, because of a group of people, a handful of guys, and again, back to the ShivWorks collective guys, and then some others
TPI.
Yep. Yeah. So, but it is accepted.
Yep.
And it is real neat to see it, that people, there's way more respect and way more, I mean, people really, really do get it now. So it's fun to just put a fine point on that.
Agree.
So,
Dude, again, the fact that I can actually teach this class and that there's traction for it. It's like, oh my God, that's the best testimony to that kind of thing, that people are willing to look at more stuff. I mean, look at now that you can actually go take shotgun classes. 4 or 5 years ago, that's unheard of. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody was producing new shotguns. There was no innovations in anything. And then all of a sudden, we get 1301. Oh my God. And now people are shooting it. Oh, we can put red dots on shotguns. Oh, and now we can learn. Man, all this stuff where people are opening up and going, there's more to this than running a Glock and running a carbine super, super fast and shooting lots of targets and blasting 2,000 rounds downrange and clearing rooms in a team. You know, there's more to this, and it's great. It's super gratifying.
I do know that you have some new gear that you've been working with, Dark Star Gear, right? Isn't that correct?
Yep. So,
man, tell us about that.
So this is actually, so you guys are the first public announcement for this. It's all, I've kept it real quiet because I was testing it. I was T&E-ing it for, I don't know, God, at this point, over a year and a half, maybe. It's been something I started about 4 years ago. I sketched out about 4 years ago, and I took it to Tom, and then, you know, he's so busy, right? And this piece of gear is a very nichey thing, so it's not, he's never going to make money. We're not going to make any money on it. So, you know, he had to deal with the stuff that made money. But about a year and a half ago, he's like, hey, yeah, let's hit this. Let's look at this. So I love revolvers. I'm a revolver shooter. I love it. For whatever reason, it just appeals to me. I think there's a few strengths to them in certain aspects, but just in general, I like shooting revolvers, and they're just as functional as semi-autos. For all you guys, you should have a few rounds. Hey, shut up. You know, I'm going to hit what I aim at, so I don't have to have 18 rounds on board. That was very old man shouting at the clouds that I just said that, but it's true. So I always, you know, the biggest issue with, well, not biggest, but one of the big issues with revolvers is spare ammo, reloading and carrying spare ammo. It's not convenient, right? Yeah, speed loaders are great, except you ever try to carry one concealed? They're a pain in the butt, and there's no great way of doing it. We can kind of do it, you know, once you start looking. Speed strips, okay, speed strips are cool. But again, you still have this, there's some bolt to it, and you got to manipulate this thing. And so I was looking at the old 2x2x2 carriers that every revolver shooter, like most cops, had on their duty belt, and it was, you know, two, you know, like little pockets, 2 rounds, 2 rounds, 2 rounds.
Oh yeah.
So you always had, you know, your 6 rounds spare and stuff, and there was always a good one. And the idea was grab 2, load 2. And if you're smart, if you're really smart, you don't even load all 6. You'd load 2, fire 2 if you're in the middle of a fight, right? You know, load 2, shoot 2, load 2, shoot 2. So you're not out of the fight for, you know, this is the thing a lot of non-revolver guys go, well, it takes forever to reload. Well, yeah, if I reload all 6 individually, when the reality is I'm going to pop it, boom, drop 2 rounds in, boom, 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 boom. So I'm not out of the fight for more than a few seconds at a time. That's an old school way of doing it. Every revolver shooter who actually was good and understood defensive revolver shooting understood that concept. And so, and here's a side note, another ad for another training opportunity is Revolver Roundup, the Pat Rogers Memorial Revolver Roundup in November 18th, 15th, something like that. That Friday, like Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And it's at Gunsight, like it was the last couple of years. And I'm on the instructor cadre this year, which is very bitchin'. Instead of because I've gone to Revolver Roundup. Now I get to actually teach. But
Rock on.
it's great. And it's basically a repository of functional fighting revolver knowledge that is not particularly available anymore. And it's almost it was very close to being a dead thing. Daryl Bolke was very, very, he was not going to let it die. And that's why I put this on and call it the Pat Rogers Memorial, because Pat Rogers was a longtime revolver shooter. And he basically dumped all his knowledge onto Daryl in the months before Pat died. And so we see that. And so Revolver Roundup, you get to shoot and do all this kind of stuff. And it's one of those areas where I thought, man, that 2x2x2 carry is great, but it's very bulky because it's leather and it's got this little flap and it's a bit slower. So it's bulkier to conceal. And then when you do it, you've got to pop that flap up and then get your fingers in and load. And I thought, wait a minute, why can't we do a Kydex version of that? And so I sketched out, played around, and then Tom Kelly from Dark Star Gear, he added a few tweaks to it. And we've gone through about 4 iterations at this point, where we'd have them, I'd play with them for a little bit, and then I'd give them to certain people to test out. Craig's had them and run them out. Tom Givens has run them. Wayne Dobbs, Daryl Chuck, Greg Ellifritz, and I've given out to guys who actually run revolvers and know how to do it. And finally, Brian Eastridge, he had some input too. He gave me a decent idea that turned out not working, but it helped finalize the last design. So I came to this thing, and it's basically it's 2 rounds. It holds 2 rounds, and because it's so small, you can fit 3 of these carriers together, and it's less room than the old 2x2x2 carrier. It's much faster. It's much more concealable. And so we trying to come up with a name for it. So it's the Immediate Action Carrier, IAC.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I like that. I was like, yeah, I'll go with that. Just like Immediate Action Combative. So an Immediate Action Carrier, because it ties into me anyway, but that's really what it is. It is an immediate action reload. Get 2 rounds in right away. So at the very least, and you can carry it even if you have to be in a very tight concealed envelope, because it sits so small on the belt line and stuff. And we're going to have it. We're probably going to have it available probably within the next few weeks for sure. My website or Dark Star Gear's website, and then a couple bigger retailers might be carrying it as well. And we'll put out a video on kind of the use for it and stuff like that. But this is the first public announcement where I've said it's going to be available here soon. It's the first time we've ever spoken publicly the name IAC, Immediate Action Carrier, and that it is coming out pretty soon. And it's because it's very simple, and I'm very proud. Our price point is going to be like $18. So it's a nice cheap piece of gear that, somebody wants to try it and it doesn't work for them. They're not going to feel ripped off because they spent $800 on this piece of gear. But yeah, I'm really happy about it. It's passed the test. Like I said, Tom Givens, Wayne Dobbs, all these guys have all given it the thumbs up of like, yes, this is a good idea.
All dudes that you mentioned are all freaking revolver experts.
Yeah, so they understand this. They understand the fighting world, and they understand how to run revolvers. And they're all like, yes, this is a really good one. It's also, Wayne actually mentioned this. He was, where this would also be really good, Cecil, for people who are like hiking and stuff, to carry like snake loads.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like
Perfect.
you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
have regular loads in your gun, but you can have a couple quick snake loads if you need them quickly, or similar. Or if you hunt with like a lever action rifle, right? You hunt small game with 38 special 357 lever action rifle. You can have spare ammo. So the first where it's going to be 38 special 357 Magnum. Depending on how it goes, we might have others, right? We might do 45, 44, 44, 45. Might probably do 22. I'm hoping we'll do 32 because that's my own wheelhouse. But 38 for sure. And we've tested it with a bunch of different ammo, and it works pretty well. I mean, if you got a piece of reloaded brass that you've reloaded like 40 times and it's a little stretched out, a little bit bigger, it might be a little stiff, but there's some workarounds for that. So for the most part, it's been pretty, so I'm real happy. I don't do a lot of gear stuff. I figure there's smarter people out there that know how to design, gear and stuff. But, like I think my knife sheath I designed for the clinch pick. For Jam Custom Kydeck. I think that's really good. I'm really proud of that one. And I think this one's going to be there too. It's something like, is a lot of people going to need it? No, for sure. It's a very niche thing, but I think the people who realize it will go, hey, you know what? That's a nice little piece of gear to have, even if they only have one, just to have that, every now and then have a spare quick 2-round load. So hopefully we'll see. But like I said, in a few weeks, I'll start to get actual public feedback, and we'll see if I'm fooling myself.
Yeah, we'll any information we can put on that in the show notes, we'll do it.
Okay.
But if there's not a whole lot we can put out, that's cool as well. We'll push
right
it
now,
later.
We'll have it here in the next couple weeks. We'll have more concrete stuff.
Okay. Well, awesome, Aaron. Yeah, I think you had a show and tell.
Since we're on revolvers in the NPE class, I wanted to make sure now this isn't very concealable,
but it's still nice.
But so this is a 1968, I believe, Model 15 combat. This is called the Combat Masterpiece.
Exactly. Sweet.
Yeah, my father-in-law literally let me borrow this to take the Range Master certification.
That's a great gun to run at that class, dude.
And it's not very concealable, but again, for a revolver, and especially a guy like me that can barely spell revolver, this thing is awesome.
That's a great shooter, dude.
When you let's see here, when you pull this trigger, it makes you realize what a great trigger feels like, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I want to thank my father-in-law Tom for loaning this to me.
Aaron, how's the double action trigger on that?
Dude, real nice. It makes it to where it reminds me of how I've got my Glock set up on that edge. I know that's kind of off topic, but the way I have my Glock triggers running, they're almost like short rolling double action now. But yeah, this makes you realize the technique of just rolling through that double action, how nice it can be on a pretty nice gun like that.
It appears. I always laugh when people who are striker gun guys who, as soon as you bring up running a double action revolver, they're all like, oh, it's so hard to run that trigger. No, it's not, dude. It's actually much easier than running your striker trigger because it's actually set up for the human finger, the way the human finger moves through that arc.
Oh yeah, man. It feels great.
Yeah.
Again, a big thanks to my father-in-law for that.
That's a great one. I'm jealous. That's a great one.
I'll kind of shape this next discussion because I mentioned to you, and I completely thought of you when I started looking at some of these newer series of videos that are out
Yeah.
there,
Uh-huh.
right? And I will tell you up front, I have some of the John Danaher series that just recently come out because I had some discount codes and points, and so I went ahead and got a couple of the series. But I thought, man, that's a perfect thing to talk with Cecil about, and that is old man jujitsu, or as John Danaher calls it, ageless jujitsu.
Yep.
Which you made a really important point about this, and I'm gonna give you the floor because I liked your response, and it was precisely why I wanted to talk to you about it. But your thought about this whole kind of a big craze, for lack of a better term. A lot of people are producing these videos, and you responded to me. I like your response. What's your thoughts on
What was
that?
it? I don't remember. What did I say
Yeah,
exactly?
so basically, you just said, "Hey, I've been having to do that for years."
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And frankly, I'm just gonna be straight up. A lot of the half guard stuff, of course, John Danaher's saying, "Hey, half guard is probably the most important position for older people because all the contact and all the control and attacks you have from that position." I agree. I've been, and really my influence on that stuff came from you. But man, a lot of the half guard stuff, straight up, the stuff that we learned from you.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, so very close.
Yep. Well, see, it's funny because so I've basically always had to do old man jujitsu because number one, I didn't start serious jujitsu training till I was almost 30, right? I started it with Vunak in 89 when I'm 25, whatever. But by the time I started training with Meg in 93, I'm 29-ish. I've got wife, daughter, trying to support them, do all that kind of stuff. So I didn't have unlimited time or energy or lack of responsibility, so I could focus on the jujitsu. Plus, I've never been the athlete, right? I've never, I tell people in seminars, I was the kid picked last in dodgeball and PE, and that's completely true. I didn't have any physical gifts on anything. Plus, I've had severe asthma my entire life. So even when I was 25, 26, I couldn't rely on speed, strength, flexibility, reflexes, quick thinking, any of that kind of stuff. I had to figure out how to make this work when, trying to do jujitsu the way, and this is what's interesting to me about this new fascination with, ageless jujitsu is it's not ageless jujitsu. It's the way jujitsu was always intended.
Yeah, that is a good point.
That's why I laugh at this. Jujitsu was always intended for the weaker, smaller, frailer person to deal with the bigger, stronger, tougher, faster, meaner, uglier, more aggressive, has initiative, whatever attribute the other guy has. And jujitsu had to be able to allow the smaller person to be able to deal with that. Well, that includes older people. That includes people with injuries, with physical limitations. It's always been that way. Here's what's happened. And because I was there, right? I was blessed to start training with Meg in mid 93, maybe, when at the time, if you wanted to do jujitsu, you had a couple choices. Brazil, duh. California, duh. Florida, and New York. And that was it. I was lucky. I mean, I still count myself super blessed that Meg decided that he moved here and opened an academy. And so I got to do this. So I got a lot of inside information and dirt, whatever, however, inside information on what jujitsu in Rio was like in the 70s, the 80s, up until the early 90s, stuff that even now today, a lot of people don't know about. So I understood early what they were trying to do. Then what happens is right in that early 90s into the mid 90s, what was the driver that got jujitsu more popular? The UFC, right? So it became MMA as the focus. And even in Brazil, the big focus through the 80s and into the 90s was Vale Tudo, right? So it was, you had the Carlson Gracie team. They were one of the first like real legit professional jiu-jitsu teams. Well, most of their professional focus was on Vale Tudo, right? So who is that? Fit athletes in their prime who make a full-time living from fighting, jiu-jitsu fighting, however you want to say it, who has all these extras, right? They can, the good nutrition, supplements, legal and otherwise, and that became a driver of jiu-jitsu. And so everyone's like, yeah, look at, Forrest Griffin versus Anderson Silva, this and this, and which is great. And there's a lot of great things we take away from that. But now we're looking at two peak athletes. And then what happened after that, as UFC took off and became more popular, and a lot of people were like, I want to train, but I want to do MMA. Oh, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu. Well, what's then becomes popular? Competition jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
Which is awesome. And again, there is so much we can get out of competition jiu-jitsu. I will never regret any single match, any tournament I ever did over the last 30 years. And I've done a lot of them, right? All of them been positive. But again, that's a skewed perspective on jiu-jitsu, especially when we're looking at the adult division, guys 30 and under who basically are professional athletes. Right, Leandro Lowe, Lucas Lapre, Meows, the Musenti, and whoever, all the guys, right? They're professional athletes. They're the peak athletes. And everybody was going, well, so and so did this at the Mundials, therefore that's appropriate. Except it's not, because a lot of that, the stuff that they're pulling off, may be technically suboptimal, but they get away with it because they're peak athlete at the peak of their fitness and their conditioning and their preparation. That doesn't apply to me. That doesn't apply to you. That doesn't apply to Becky. That doesn't apply to 98% of us. And so while everyone's like, oh, and I always make fun of the BJJ Fanatics DVDs, because they're, most of them, up until really recently, what are the focus on? So-and-so just won Pan Ams, and here's his award-winning competition game guard passing, or this, which is great. But what does that guy do in Pan Ams against another 28-year-old black belt? Does that have the same impact that it does on me? I'm going to be 59 in a couple weeks. Right? That's a completely different thing. And so here's what's really interesting. I was just talking to my academy partner about this a couple days ago. We were laughing. We saw something that just came up from, and I'm blanking out. We just saw like an Instagram or something from somebody, a former big time competitor. But they're all doing this now. All the guys who are the big competitors, say 2001 to 2020-ish, in that time frame. They're all getting older now, right? They're now north of 35. Maybe they're into their 40s. And they're all talking about, yeah, I used to do this, but now I have to change my jiu-jitsu game. Oh, really? That's interesting. So what you're saying is you're going back to old school jiu-jitsu, the old school mindset, the old school ideas and concepts and principles, maybe taking our new techniques and that are still valid, but maybe we have to reimagine them for the average earth person, right? And so now you get all these guys who are the king of the mountain 10 years ago. Now they're, late 30s, 40s, maybe into the 50s. You get like Hoyler and stuff. Now you're in your mid 50s or even older. I'm not 100% sure. But they can't do what they did before. And so now they're going to this. And now you get Danaher, who's starting to creep up to those multiple decades, right? And now all of a sudden it's a thing. Well, guess what? For a lot of us, it's been a thing. Yeah. It's been a thing for a long time. And again, I'll throw a bone to Henner and Huron. not to suck up to them because I don't do that, but they've always stayed true to that. It's one of the things that attracted me to going and looking at GU anyway, was because they stayed true to that idea of how do we, with any particular physical limitation, whatever that is, age, whatever, how do we still fight? How do we still defend ourselves? How do we still use jujitsu? Right. And you look at, and they've been true to it from the get-go. They've never lost that. And now all these guys, all these top guys, they're sounding like Henner and Huron. It's hilarious. This instant, like I said, I wish I could remember who this was. Sean would be able to tell me. He's got a better memory than me, but we literally were reading an Instagram, this guy's Instagram, to each other, going, Henner might have written this, Huron might have written this, but this is a guy who's a well-known competitor, and you start to go, well, of course. When you can't rely on physical attributes, you have to change, or you do that from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So you see, like my half guard stuff, I've literally been doing that half guard game since I was a purple belt. One of the reasons I teach it in my basic seminars is because it freaking works for most people. You don't have to be super athlete. You don't have to be 6'5". You don't have to be 200 pounds. You can make the half guard work in a fighting environment with or without weapons. Doesn't matter. It works. And you want to go and play straight competition jiu-jitsu? Guess what? It works just as well there. I just rolled this morning and I pulled off a couple sweeps from it with really good guys, so it's really funny to me now that there's people, it's like, yeah, welcome to my world that I've been focusing on and trying to teach, especially anybody who's been to a seminar with me in the last 15 years, for sure. This is the path I've been on. And this is why I teach what I teach is essentially ageless jujitsu for everybody even in a weapons-based environment. And so it's just funny to me that it's now an in thing, right? I'm just sitting here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. BJJ fanatics never came to me and offering me a DVD set. Okay.
Well, you should talk to him, because I think that, Cecil, you should, because, and I'll tell you why, because they're always looking for people. Clearly it's their model. I mean, it's worth you putting some of your stuff out there on video, buddy. You might make a little bit of money. Not that that's go ahead.
But you don't. Somebody told me about their structure and that you don't really make any money. But
Gordon Ryan does, though.
Yeah, that's a little different. Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Danaher makes a shitload of money on that, but the rest of us, we don't get the sweetheart deals with that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure, and I hope I'm.
Oh yeah, kidding, I know, but it's
don't know the real structure. But if you say it's not really worth it, maybe it is.
Well, here's why I say that. I mean, it's worth it. You make some money and you get some notoriety. But I've been down that path with a couple DVDs and a couple bits of my material that I didn't have control over. Right? Did I benefit? Did I benefit from it? Sure. Did I make a teeny bit of money from it? Sure. But at this point in my life, do I want somebody else to have control over my material?
That's a good point.
And I'm like, the money is not as important to me as being able to guide my own integrity going further. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and not only that, Cecil, you're in a position right now. You're retired from your day job. You're running your academy.
Yeah.
And you might as well be teaching that at your seminars, and the people that are going to benefit, I mean, they might as well be right there with you. So, that I probably should stand corrected.
No. Your point's valid, dude. Your point is absolutely valid about that. And, could be, but I just at this point, I don't feel like I'll gain that much from doing it. What I'd rather do is just keep putting out videos, and I'm doing more. I'm actually scheduled next week to film about 3 or 4 more little things to throw out there, including
They're great, buddy.
I'm gonna show a video of what I'm showing at the summit. I'm gonna show a little teaser thing of, hey, I'm teaching this.
Cool.
And I'll show that, so we got stuff. I'd rather do that. You know what I mean? I'd rather put that video out there, even if it doesn't have as much traction as something BJJ Fanatics would do. But I don't know. I'm not chasing fame or money at this point. I'm chasing, I'm chasing a body of work that lasts.
Yeah.
No, you know what I mean?
That's the way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something Craig has talked about. I mean, I'm literally, like a lot of stuff I'm stealing from Craig. He had that thought process years ago, right? Okay. He's making great money now, and he's super important, famous, and people are coming to him, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't pursue that. What he pursued was staying true to what he believed in, and just building on it, and putting content out there, and being willing to talk and engage with people, say, this is why I believe, this is what I teach, blah, blah, blah. And eventually people respond, more and more people respond to it. And I'm just going to trust that. You know what I mean? I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, put more video, because that is a thing. That's how society works now, right? You get videos out so more people get eyes on you. But I'd rather do it, my own way, kind of thing.
Well, and Cecil, one of the things, and this, just to kind of encourage you in the forum you're talking about, your videos on YouTube. I mean, my instructor, he obviously is an awesome mentor of mine, and I learned so much from him, but I can't be with him all the time. Meaning, number one, I help run the morning program. And so I can't be there in the evening as much as I want to be. And I just spoke with him on the phone today, and we were kind of talking about that, meaning that, man, when you're trying to help teach, and you're still trying to go in the evenings, it becomes a little harder. But my point is that video for me, in many cases, it's stuff that I basically own or know, or maybe some of it's stuff that I was decent at a year ago, and I've kind of let it fall out of my lexicon. And that is the beauty of video, is that, man, I can even just watch it and be, okay, I remember it now. So video is a phenomenal thing for me.
Well, Eric, let me interject in that. That's actually, it's a different aspect, but same thing with my music. I have a journal that has lots of music stuff I've worked on, and I forget I've ever even worked on it. And then I pull it out, or I'll see a video or listen to a song. It's the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Good comparison.
Yep.
Well, Cecil, we're definitely running long in the tooth, but we got a little more to talk about. But for a tangible recommendation for our audience members out there that especially may be getting a little older, but also, like you just said, it's for everybody, especially newer people will benefit just as much, if not more so. But can you just give a summary of what people should really focus on if they want to go with this mindset?
Sure. Number one, don't worry about winning. Worry about not losing.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Excellent point.
Stay safe. Don't be in a hurry to get to the next step. Make sure you are in control and safe at that step that you're at. We were working triangle counters this week in the advanced class. And really what I was emphasizing was the first part of, look, this is what he has to do to your arms. If I can keep my forearms attached to his body, and I keep my elbows being tractor beamed in towards my hips, he can't get a triangle. It's impossible. He has to open that up. So if I just put effort into keeping that position, I'm safe from a triangle. Now, I'm not going to, obviously that doesn't mean I stay there for the next 18 hours, but it's not, how do we counter the triangle? Do this and do this and this here, just stay here. Boom, now everything's nice and tight. And then I could start to move and I can start to pass his guard. I can do these other things. Most of the time we get in a hurry to jump to the cool thing, right? Arm bars from mount. Everybody's in a hurry. You're mounted on a guy. Oh, I got to spin around and get to the point where I can crank on that arm bar. No, you know what I do? I spin around and sit down and I'll chill. And that's okay, good. Can he move? So I'll test my partner. Hey, roll away from me. Can't do it. Okay, pop my leg off. Can't do it. Okay, tuck your arm back underneath you. Nope, can't do it. Cool. Then the finish, the end state, cranking and hyperextending the arm, is nothing. It's there, right? It's dominant positional control. The concept of dominant positional control taking to the ultimate level is really what it is, right? It's you control the position no matter what, right? So I'm fascinated now having somebody mount me or take my back or be in side control, and I'm still in control of the position. That's what I'm fascinated with that. And it's not easy and it's very fleeting. But if I can take a portion of the control away from him, it freaks people out. I'll have a guy, somebody I've never rolled with. I'll go to, someplace else and I'll roll with somebody. They let out, hey, yeah, go ahead, side control. And I get there and I start defending and I'm shifting my elbow this way and I'm keeping control of their arm, their head and their elbow. And I'm starting to sneak away, I'm pulling my hip out a little bit. And I'm not fighting. I'm just I'm taking away his ability to control me. And all of a sudden you see in their expression, their energy is pouring out of like, what the F is going on? This is so foreign to the way it normally is. Usually on the bottom.
Unflattening.
Yes, I'm unflattening to that next level, right? But most people are I got to spastic flail away, get it. And then, you're a top guy. Oh, I'm controlling. I'll lock it in a little bit more. And then there's the opening where I'm just like, no, you can't do the opening. You can't take advantage of an opening because I'm not giving it to you. And I'm keeping control over your entire movement as it is. And people start, what? Man, you let somebody mount you and you do the same thing. Dude, people freak out. So you think of it that way, like control the position as much as you can for wherever you're at, and then think, where can I go safely? Now, that doesn't mean it might not require a scramble. That doesn't mean it might not require energy, a physical blast. I'm not saying this is like, oh, you're just floating around. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that mentally, in your head, okay, if I'm going to shift my hip this way, there's a slight possibility that he can scramble like this, but I'm going to be ahead of it, and I'm going to start to grab the hip here. Boom, go. Boom. Then I go, as opposed to the way most people do it. Oh, crap, he's on top of me. I got to go. Hey, yeah. He just got my arm. I don't know how that happened. Well, it's because you were in a hurry. So play the long game. Is this a competition winning strategy? Not at all. Absolutely not. And if you're training at a competition school, your training partners are going to get irritated with you. It's just fact. It's like, oh, you should open up. You should open up your game. Why? Well, you can't get points that way. You can't win a tournament. I don't give a crap about that right now. What I give a crap about is being able to fight against somebody 20 years younger, 25 pounds heavier, and 2 inches taller than me. And I can do it night after night after night and get up the next morning and not feel like I've been, hit by a freight train. Right? That's the important part, because once I get to this, and this is what I try to get across to my students at the academy. If I get to a point where every single person who rolls with me is deathly afraid of mounting me, how much easier is my roll going to be?
Yeah.
Right? At Meg's, most of the guys there were deathly afraid of being in my closed guard or my half guard. They hated it. Great. So now they're playing much looser and not smashing me. or they're putting a ton of energy and flailing away and trying to drive in and smash me, which I can take advantage of. You see what I mean? So but
Yeah.
their fear of doing what they would like to do lets me open up the rest of my game. And it's the same with the bottom. If I know, okay, Eric, mount me. If I know that the chance that you're going to be able to stay there for an extended period or tap me is really small, how easy is my life? Am I under real pressure? No. Can I think? Right? We talked about earlier about this whole idea in classes like NPE Counter Robbery or the Cognitive Conclave or ECQC, where we're trying to teach you to think and function under pressure and to make correct decisions under pressure. Well, I've just given you a formula to do that in straight jiu-jitsu, right?
Oh, yeah.
Be safe. Lock down the position to the point where you minimize. It's chess, right? Everybody talks about jiu-jitsu as physical chess, right? Here it is. You're mounted on me, but I'm checking your hands, right? And I'm ready to move, and you know it. You know, and every time you post out, I'm stopping, or I'm hitting an elbow escape, or I'm starting to wrap your arm and you're pulling back and you're sitting back and you're, oh, man. Then when something happens and I do blast, you're gone and I'm not losing. That's ageless jiu-jitsu, right? But it's a sense of you don't worry about winning. Just stay safe and don't lose and move to the next step where you're going to be safe and not lose. And eventually that progression lets you win.
Well, and I have to say, because again, a shout out to my buddy Chris Curry, who's I mean, Chris, he's the main assistant instructor at our or assistant coach at our gym. He's a purple belt. He's heading towards his brown soon. He and I were talking on the phone earlier, and we were talking about this very thing, and he was talking about that.
Yeah.
His focus of staying, because he's older than Aaron and I. He's early 50s.
Yep.
But he's in great shape, excellent technical abilities. But he was talking about that same thing, about that has become his main focus, and his main focus, especially when he's traveling, because that was the thing he and I were talking about for a short period, was he wanted to know what my thought was when I train at other gyms, and so it's interesting that you bring up that point and how Chris was talking about that earlier. But yeah, you're right. And another thing I was going to make the point, and we can segue towards the end of the show, is that you also relax a lot more if you have that mindset. You conserve energy, and like you said earlier, you don't make bad mistakes. Now, of course, you can make a mistake.
You might lose. You still get tapped. You might, guy can catch you, but it's much less. And you're not doing it through a sheer stupid reason because you were desperate to, I got to move. I got to pass this guard. I got to get him off me. I got to move to a position where I can get a submission. Really? Why? Stay safe, And like you said, you're relaxing. So I've had students accuse me of this and get mildly miffed. And I don't do it on purpose. I literally never done it on purpose. They'll say something along the lines of, yeah, Cecil, we're rolling and you're controlling me and you're setting me up for some finish. I can feel it. And then and I'm fighting for dear life. I'm going 100%. And all of a sudden I see you turn and look at somebody across the mat and you start coaching them. And I'm like, I swear to God, this is not like I'm dissing you. I'm so dismissive of you that I'm not paying attention. It's just like, hey, I know I can lock this position down. I'm safe. I'm secure. I know you're not going to all of a sudden be able to do anything. I can take 2 seconds to look over and go, hey, Mike, fix your elbow, that kind of thing. And again, it's because I can relax because I know I'm in a good position. I'll do that when I'm underneath somebody. It's not that big a deal. If you know where you're safe and you know where you got to move. Because this isn't like, I just lay there and hold on for dear life. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm still progressing. I'm still looking to win. I'm still looking to move forward. I'm just not going to do it at the expense of being safe and careful as I go through. It's methodical. It's not necessarily slow, right? It's very methodical. It's just not duh, duh,
It's
duh.
not
It might be.
sloth jujitsu.
It's not quite sloth jujitsu. I joke about that. It's either I joke, I call it sloth jujitsu or blob jujitsu, right? You ever see the movie The Blob? The original one with
Yeah.
Steve McQueen?
Yeah.
And I still have this because I saw it when I was like 9 years old on Saturday morning TV. We had a show called World Beyond that showed all the monster movies and stuff. And I remember seeing this, and it's the old guy is poking at the asteroid, and then the blob gets on the stick, and then he holds the stick up, and the blob comes down, and then he turns it up, and it's still coming, and then it gets on his hand, and then it just slowly. Boop, 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 and then they take him to the hospital, and then all of a sudden, by the time a day in the hospital, now he's entirely encased in the blob. I'm like, that's my jujitsu, right? I just might not be moving that slowly, but I am moving that methodically and maybe incrementally, but it just might be, but I'm not giving you the opportunity to intercept me in the middle of that, and once you get to that point, jiu-jitsu, man, for me right now, the last year or so, jiu-jitsu has been more fun than it's been in 10 plus years,
Nice.
Awesome.
and I think my jiu-jitsu is actually better than it's ever been. I might not win, I might not get tons of submissions, but I haven't tapped in a really long time, guys. And this is not a brag, and I don't mean to say, and it's not what I'm trying to say. Like,
You're not that way, buddy.
Yeah, but but some people out there go, "Oh, he's talking about he's untappable." I'm not untappable. That's not what I'm saying. It's just I'm so careful, and everything's on this, and I'm focused on not doing dumb stuff. I understand everything I'm doing. I understand if I go to this step, I'm vulnerable here, so make sure you watch that. Boom. Okay, good. I made through, didn't get tapped, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that's just, man, is that fun? That is so much. Oh, no, I take it back. Huron tapped me. I shouldn't say that. Huron
I
tapped me.
remember you telling me about
Yeah,
that.
he
Yeah.
beat the snot out of me in the nicest way possible. But yeah, but short
With a
of
big smile on his face.
oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, my friend, that was pretty good. Shut up. Shut up, my friend. Don't give me that. You just humiliated me in front of all my students. No. But and here's the cool thing and why I don't resent it, because he tapped me with the same mentality that I was fighting with. You know what I mean? That's how he rolls, is the same way. He's just so far beyond that he could take it to that next level and still get the tap. That's where I'm heading. That's what I'm heading towards, is that.
So Cecil, to clarify, so he was approaching it from a don't lose standpoint, and then because he's so good at that, he's waiting for that perfect opportunity, then he's gonna win.
Dude, that's exactly what he's doing. He's literally, you can feel it. It's palpable. You can feel him waiting to spring the trap. And he's got a smile on his face because he knows it's coming. He knows no matter what, boom, there it is. And you feel it. You realize, oh man, I can't believe you just did that to me. I saw it coming, but it didn't matter, and it's just that next level of doing this kind of thing. And that's where I think, and again, I think Huron's a little bit ahead of everybody else, because we're talking about all these other guys, these athletes who are now, as they're getting older, they're kind of reinventing their jiu-jitsu, and they're kind of taking a look. Well, Huron's just been doing that at the same time, while he had all these phenomenal physical attributes, right? He just kept doing it. So he's already way up here and already playing at this next level. And I'm just fascinated by that. It's really incredibly interesting to me, because I feel now that I truly can do jujitsu when I'm in my 90s.
Yeah.
Doing it this way, I live that kind of way of being able to do jujitsu, and that's incredible. So I love all of that pathway to getting to that, the ageless jujitsu, that old man jujitsu. And I would tell people, now to start trying to play that way. Now you got a competition coming up. Hey, you got, whatever. We got Masters Worlds coming up at the end of August. So somebody out there is like, yeah, I'm going to compete in the Masters Worlds, which is awesome, by the way. If you do, good on you. Okay, maybe you have to work to that specific goal, but then after that tournament, start looking at some other stuff and play that way for a month or two. Oh, and then there's another tournament. Okay, and then we can kind of refocus. But outside of specifically working those 4 weeks or so before tournament, I would tell people, start thinking of this kind of stuff. Start thinking of this. Look at what Danaher's talking about with the Aegis Jiu-Jitsu. Look at what all these other guys are starting to put out about that kind of thing. And okay, you do great. You're 20. We've got this one great guy as one of our high-level blue belts. David's 24. I think he just turned 24. He's going to be something because he's got all the physical attributes, but he's buying into what we're saying.
That's awesome.
So he's
Cool.
going to be this, but then on top of it, when he needs to do the bigger athletic stuff, he's going to be able to do that too, which I think is an awesome, future path for people doing jiu-jitsu, because you can still do the high level competition stuff, do that. But then we've got this other path that as soon as you decide you're going to start to kind of segue out of competition, but I can still do jujitsu. I every day I'm on the mat rolling. It's a great day and I'm having fun, even when I'm injured or worn out, or I had the flu and now this is my first day back after being super weak or whatever. You still go, but I can do everything. I think that's ideally, that's where I'd like to see jujitsu go. Yes, let's have a dynamic, invigorating competition scene. Gi, no gi, MMA for sure. And let's use the lessons we can from that. But also, let's not lose sight of the macro jujitsu, right?
That's a good way to put it.
This is jujitsu and this is competition, right? It's part of jujitsu. Anybody who says different is stupid. It's part of jujitsu. But let's keep this in mind no matter what, right? Even when I'm training weapons, right? Even when I'm training, in that paradigm and we're going with it with UTMs or even blue guns, whatever. There's still, I'm still thinking of jujitsu as this whole thing, or maybe, hey, tomorrow I'm just going to go roll in a gi with some friends playing, pure jujitsu gi rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not going to jump too far in one way. Let's have that. It's like shooting, right? What's the fundamental things of shooting, of defensive handgun shooting? Grip, presentation, side alignment, trigger press, follow through. That's our still core. How do we apply it? USPSA, cool. Steel challenge, cool. Force on force with Sims, cool. Right? All of it's part of it, but this is the global aspect of, defensive handgun stuff. But we can do these little pieces here and there. You know what I mean? And I think that's how we should approach this for life.
Yeah.
Right.
Well put, buddy.
That's the hard part, because I think everybody gets a little daunted by, we got to think of all these things and we got to train this and got to train that. Yeah. Okay, sure. But it's not there's no destination, right? It's just a road. It's just a journey. And so do as much as you can and have fun with it.
Well, and Cecil, what I was gonna really make a fine point about is that I think you gave audience members one of the best ways to think about jiu-jitsu, and frankly, you're helping me too.
Oh, good.
Because I've been going through some thought processes and in my own jiu-jitsu right now, moving forward, and that's a great explanation. Well, Cecil, real quick. I mean, we're definitely at our normal or our typical time.
Yeah.
But before we go, number one, I would be remiss if if we didn't congratulate Craig Douglas
Oh, yeah.
on getting promoted to his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu this week. And that pumped me up seeing that. And, one of the things I was thinking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, now granted, may he rest in peace, William April is no longer with us. But as far as the living members of the collective, all you guys are black belts now.
Finally, we
Yep.
all of it,
Oh, cool.
all the rest of us were giving Craig crap for the last couple of years. He actually
Oh, that's
joked.
cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, he actually joked with me the other day. He was like, "Oh, Cecil, you can't use your line anymore. Like, this discussion is only for black belts." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." No, we do that. We do that all the time. Oh, Craig, go away. This is between me and Paul and Chris, then Larry, the black belts of the group. You're not permitted. But I told Craig, I said, I've never been so happy to give up a dig on you because, I'm happy
Yeah.
for him. I'm proud of him. He's had a very hard journey to do this because he's on the road literally the last 4 or 5 years. He's on the road all the time.
Yeah. And Cecil, I was going to, because I know there's probably, most people that know Craig obviously respect him and respect all of his capabilities.
Sure.
But if there's any assholes out there that want to talk shit about that he's just now getting his black belt, hey, he has a reason, because he's been going around the country. He's damn near in somebody else's backyard every weekend.
Dude, he just did a run. He just did a run the beginning of the year where he was home. I think it was 4 days out of like 7 weeks.
Yeah.
So when is he doing jiu-jitsu? He's literally trying to recover.
And I'm going to go ahead, Aaron.
I just want to say the first thing I thought of when I saw that black belt, I said, how did that dude have the time to work on a black belt? That's exactly what I thought.
And that is a testament. That's a testament to Craig, though.
100%.
Because let's face it, a lot of people that travel like him and do all the things that he does would be like, last thing I'm thinking about is going to jiu-jitsu Tuesday morning.
You have a built-in excuse to not train hard.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. But
100%.
he kept training. He got his black belt. He still lifts hard.
Yep.
So, Craig's an example for all of us.
Yep.
To be frank.
And he's an old man too. He's not as old as me, but he's damn close. So he keeps saying, "Oh, you're older than me, Cecil." Yeah, but dude, there's not a lot of mileage between the two of us. So you better shut the F up.
Yeah, he's 55 now. Well, I know it because he mentioned that in his post.
Yeah, he's 55.
And I mentioned in congratulating him that 55 is my goal as well. Yeah. Aaron and I turned 50 this year, so got 5 years. I got put.
Well, then my goal will be 60. I think that's reasonable.
Well, if you stop having surgeries.
That's true. Well, I think my surgery is going to help me with my jiu-jitsu.
There you go.
So.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, yeah. I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned that. Yep. Shout out to you, Craig. Congratulations, most assuredly.
Yep.
Cecil, before we go, because we've kind of run out of time. I know we were going to talk a little bit about carbine.
Yeah.
But I will
do that on number 6.
Yeah.
There we go.
Exactly.
There we go. Exactly. Hey, you know what? Let's do that and have Chris on, have Lapre on when we're talking carbine, but I have to be on. So it'll just be, hey, Chris, you're allowed to come on EvoSec from now on, but I always have to do it with you.
That's awesome.
That would be great. That'd be awesome. He'd be so mad.
Hey, that was a fun conversation, Cecil.
Thanks a lot, Cecil.
I always enjoy coming on EvoSec, especially when now I'm properly ahead of Lapre. So I had a great time. I always love talking to you guys.
Excellent, Cecil.